This is Ryan Elliott for Boxing Social in association with Betfred. We're in London. We've just concluded the World Boxing Super Series final. Josh Taylor defeating Regis Prograis to be crowned not only World Boxing Super Series champion, unified super lightweight champion, and Ring Magazine champion. Kalle, when you started this up, you said you wanted the best to find the best in each division. You certainly did that tonight.
Oh, you just said a mouthful there and pronouncing all the titles, eh? You've got to remember them. No, it's incredible, and it's just a joy to watch tonight. What a boxing feast, and all credit to these guys putting everything in the ring for our viewing pleasure. Left everything in the ring, both of them, and they both have to go to hospital tonight. And we've seen an absolute war on, not just a war at the highest level of the sport. You saw two athletes in their prime. Not only champions, but champions in their prime. So I'm not talking about guys at the end of their career, at the absolute peak of their career. And it's just great to see, and barring any craziness, where you have a clash of heads or something awkward like that, or there's an injury, it's a recipe that can't fail. That's what I will say. If you put two of the best fighters in the world against each other, you will come out with a great fight. And tonight was once again, the World Boxing Super Series delivered. We had a great fight. It was unbelievable.
As you mentioned in the press conference, in a week where we are getting more champions by, seemingly by the day, we had Devin Haney promoted to WBC champion. This tournament really has delivered in terms of finding the best when there's so many titles around. Both guys left it in there, both dogs. Were you surprised that they were both able to absorb so many shots? They were both giving it and taking it for the full 12.
Yeah, it's funny when you talk about world champions and when we make the selection around the tournament. I remember going through the super lightweights and saying, right, I fancy him. And I looked at the champions at the time. It was the IBF was vacant. The WBA was Kirill Relic, and then you had the WBC where they'd sort of Prograis and Ramirez had sort of made an agreement to go separate ways, and the one was given the diamond belt, the other one was given the golden belt, and I sort of started to ignore who the world champions were. I just looked at it like, who do I think is the best in this? Ramirez didn't want to go into the tournament. The management made that very clear. So I looked at Prograis. I said, he's got to go in. I looked at Josh, and I'd seen Josh quite often actually, because I always liked him from very early on. I said he's got to go in. So actually, the first two on my list were Taylor and Prograis. So both of them weren't world champions, Then obviously I said I need a few belts in, Relic, and looked at the IBF, Baranchik and Yigit it was, and that's how the tournament formed. So for me, it's nice to have the belts in, of course, but for me it's really about finding the best guys, and the best guys aren't always the world champions. Sometimes in weights, for all different reasons. They might have just come down, they might be waiting. There's a lot of champions who should be champions, or at least fought for world titles. Dillian White being one, I guess that sticks out at the moment. Just waiting for their shots. I mean, when I did the super middleweights, it was the same. Callum Smith had been waiting a couple of years for a shot, and but I put him. I think I put him second seed because he wasn't a world champion. But I just said, you know what? But he should be, and he proved me right because he went on to win it. Of course, like I said, I just want the idea of this has always been the Champions League. It's great to have the champions in, but it's not essential for me. I could find 8 guys in a division, still make a great tournament at this level, and not necessarily have all the belts in it. It doesn't need all the belts in it. Some world champions were, you always spot a soft champion. The ones who like to pick and choose their voluntaries. I promoted them in the past, so I'm guilty of that crime. But I'm just saying this is a bit different. It's a bit different from, let's say, my role as a promoter outside of the WBSS. In the past, I'm focusing on this now because I think you have a very easy way of making clear lines in the sport.
Josh Taylor, prior to this tournament, beat Victor Postler in a world title eliminator. He came in and beat 3 unbeaten fighters to become unified champion. Have we seen the breakout of a unified pound-for-pound star tonight, rather?
Yeah, I think, Josh Taylor entered the top 10 pound for pound tonight, for sure, for sure. I'd like to have a good argument with someone who says he's not the top 10 pound for pound now. I mean, sometimes I look at the pound for pound list and I'm baffled by them, but, he didn't just win tonight. He won in absolute style in a war against an absolutely great champion. In Progress. And guess what? He did the same in the semi-final, by the way. Baranchik, great fighter. He'll be world champion again, Baranchik. And he put the style on there as well. So he's treated us in the last 6 months to 2 cracking fights at the highest level. That's what you want to see. So there was a lot of questions like, is he now the next pay-per-view star in the UK? It really doesn't matter at the moment. The fact of the matter is, as the boxing public, we have seen Josh Taylor entertain us at the highest level, and that's simply the best way for a fighter to do it. It's not about how you talk, how you be. That all comes with it. I find Josh a very marketable guy because he's a lad, he's a fella, and he's the type of fella you go down the pub with, and you wouldn't want to have a round with him. He's a stand-up guy. He's a bit of a throwback. He's old school. And I like that.
Do you think he has to go for the undisputed crown, or do you think we have to see him in with Ramirez?
It's a decision for him and his team to make, I guess. I mean, would you blame him for taking a voluntary? No, have a voluntary in between. Have a loosener fight, or go straight in. It might. His mentality, Josh's mentality, I was spoken to him a lot during the tournament. He's gung ho, He's leading the charge. If it kicks off, he's the first in. That's his mentality. That's not an act. His act is not what he was, saying at the weigh-in or the press conferences. He loves a fight. He's as close as a brave art as you're going to find in a boxing ring. He's a certified nutter in a ring, but outside he's a very likeable fella.
Another fight I want to get your thoughts on, Kalle. Tonight we saw Dereck Chisora in there with David Price, who's meant to be facing Joseph Parker. He was ruled out. In stepped the big truck. Dereck Chisora closed the distance well. Did get clipped towards the end of one of the rounds, but ultimately too good, too much for David Price. Do you think that's it for David now?
Yeah, I think first of all, Dereck looked like a man on a mission tonight, and David didn't. David didn't get his game plan off. The jab, which is so beautiful. David's got a beautiful jab. Didn't get going. There was no straight rights landed. He landed a couple of good counter hooks. One which caught Dell at the end of a round, but it was far too little, and David will be the first to admit that. And I just think that David's had a great career. He's got a beautiful family, a wonderful wife, and if he's got to know what he's got to do. He's a grown man, but as a friend, I'd love to see him retire. I just think it's. He's got so much still to offer the sport. Maybe as a trainer outside the ring, as a manager, he knows so much about fighting and boxing. But he's a great guy, and I think it's time for him to retire. This is just my personal opinion. But whatever he does, I'll always support him as a friend. I count him as a true friend. And same, Dell. I don't know what he's eating for breakfast at the moment, but he looks solid. He's always been big. He's a lump, isn't he? But he looks lean, solid at the moment. He looks like he's doing fights where he wants to go into he wants to have a ruck, and it's great to see. Very, very great to see that Dell's back in business, so to speak. He thrives off confidence. Crowd singing his name. That is. That boosts Dell. I know Dell in and out, and I think it's great for him. He's paid his dues in this sport. So I remember the first time I heard an arena singing Dell's name was in the first Dillian White fight in Manchester, where we shocked everyone. Where it was a great fight, and everyone expected it to be a bit of a stinker, but it turned out to be one of the fights of the year. And I've got goosebumps. I remember sitting next to Vladimir Klitschko. They announced the Joshua fight that night in the ring, and I was just sitting there. And I just thought, you know what? I love you, Del, because you've been through so much shit in this sport. Always, I picked up Del when no one wanted him, and he boxed on the undercard in Germany, and one of the first fights was a door opener, and I just felt, you know what? You might be mad, you might be enfant terrible, but you've got to love him somehow. And I was just, it was really moving when I heard those fans singing his name in Manchester that night. And he's gone on from there. He lost the second fight with Dillian, but Dillian's a great fighter, really great fighter. So nothing to be ashamed of. And he blasted out a few guys, and he's lost that thing where you just think he's going to go a bit cold. I remember like that Caballero fight. But that Caballero fight, for example, he boxed in a casino. I know I get these Monte Carlo shows, but the atmosphere is a little bit sterile there, and it's a bit flat. And that's not Dell's world. Del thrives off the big stage, and he loves it. He saw it tonight. He was bathing in it, absolutely bathing in it.
Now the Super Series show rolls on. I'm sure that whet the appetite nicely. Now you're Inoue and Inoue-Donaire. Excited for that fight, Kalle? It can only be a fan-friendly affair, surely.
Yeah, we've got Donaire, Inoue, and then we've got Prograis-Taylor. So, I'm just getting my breath back after tonight looking at that. I'll be enjoying watching that a few more times over the next couple of days. But yeah, on Inoue-Donaire now, next in Japan. Sold out 22,000 fans. It's going to be incredible. I mean, he's a national hero there now, which is great to see the tournament again delivering for the fighters, because I went to the first fight was great, but it was 8,000-9,000 people, I think, and so it was also sold out, but it was a much smaller venue, and it was at the time Murata was the big star in Japanese boxing, and it's just completely changed. Inoue's now the massive box office star there, not just in boxing. He's gone over to the mainstream, and it's great to see. And but he has it all to do with Donaire. Who's in a very different way than Del Boy, but he's also found his weight in bantam. He's a big bantam. It's definitely the biggest fighter that Inoue's faced so far. So it's will show us. Inoue's plans apparently are to go through the weights. He's got to get through Donaire first. That's going to be quite a final.
Before I let you shoot, Kalle, one thing I want to get your thoughts on. Someone who's competed in the World Boxing Super Series, also faced Donaire, Ryan Burnett. News broke yesterday that he's been forced to retire due to injuries at the age of just 27, but a career to be proud of. I'm sure you'll agree. No shame in retiring at that age. Brilliant champion, and just sad news for the boxing world, really.
Yeah, I can sum it up in just a few words. An absolute gentleman, pleasure to work with, charismatic, likeable, and a beast of a fighter. Massive set of cojones on him. I mean, real ballsy fighter, never afraid to go in where it hurt. And at the end of the day, great world champion, and